On March 22, 2024, at 9:27 a.m., Captain Ibrahim Traoré received an encrypted message. 38 seconds to the death zone. Water tower. Sniper team. $10 million contract. This message marked the beginning of a dangerous and covert military operation against a massive terrorist force that threatened the stability of Burkina Faso. Captain Traoré was known for his sharp mind and exceptional military skills despite his young age. The intelligence revealed that a group of 5,000 heavily armed terrorists was mobilizing near the water tower region, preparing for a major attack to destabilize the region. Despite having only 2,800 troops, Captain Traoré did not hesitate. He quickly formulated a plan that relied on speed, precision, and psychological warfare to defeat a much larger enemy. The attack was not just a random act of terrorism. Traoré uncovered an international conspiracy behind it. Some foreign mining companies, exploiting the natural resources of Burkina Faso for decades, were financing these terrorist groups to maintain control over the region's resources. Traoré's intelligence network revealed communication between foreign powers and local militants. These forces wanted to keep the country weak and dependent by destabilizing its security. This conspiracy gave Traoré even more reason to fight, not just for his country's safety, but for the future of an entire continent that had long been exploited. On the early morning of March 23rd, Traoré's troops moved swiftly to their positions around the water tower area. They used the difficult terrain to their advantage, setting ambushes and traps. The terrorists, confident in their numerical superiority, launched their assault. However, Traoré's forces, guided by his brilliant strategy, disrupted their lines with sudden sniper attacks and surprise flanking maneuvers. Traoré coordinated his units to cut off enemy supply routes while maintaining high morale among his soldiers. The battle was fierce and brutal, but the discipline and determination of the 2,800 troops began to turn the tide. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's plan reached its critical moment with the assault on the water tower. Understanding the strategic importance of this location for the terrorists, communication and supply, Traoré divided his forces into two main groups. One group engaged the enemy directly, drawing their attention and fire, while the other group maneuvered stealthily to strike from the rear. This double-pronged attack disoriented the terrorists, shattering their defense lines. Under Traoré's command, his troops used night operations and rapid maneuvers to keep the enemy off balance. The terrorists were unable to regroup, and their once confident advance turned into chaotic retreat. The documents captured by Captain Traoré sent shockwaves beyond Burkina Faso. They revealed that not only local but global powers and multinational corporations were involved in financing the terrorist groups to maintain control over natural resources. Traoré addressed the African Union and United Nations, declaring, "We must protect not only our country but the entire African continent from neocolonial exploitation." However, this bold stance threatened the interests of powerful states. Some countries responded by trying to isolate Traoré through diplomatic and economic sanctions. Burkina Faso appeared to be abandoned on the international stage. Yet, Traoré strengthened his resolve through national unity and popular support. He implemented reforms to bolster the military, fostered close ties with the people, and forged alliances with neighboring countries to build regional solidarity. Under his leadership, Burkina Faso became a symbol of resistance against exploitation throughout Africa. Other nations followed his example, igniting a continent-wide movement. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's victory signaled the dawn of a new era not only for Burkina Faso but for the entire African continent. Leaders and people who stood against exploitation and foreign domination began to rise. His success was celebrated as more than a military victory. It was a movement powered by the people and strategic diplomacy. The cost was high, many soldiers lost their lives, and the country faced economic and social challenges. Yet, Traoré motivated his people by saying, "This price is the cost of freedom and independence." Internationally, Traoré earned respect for standing firm. His message that Africa's resources belong to its people became a powerful warning to global powers. Meanwhile, he initiated reforms in education, health, and infrastructure. By training young people both in military and civil sectors, he worked to secure the continent's future. Traoré's story became a symbol of courage, strategy, and patriotism, guiding Africa out of dark times toward a hopeful future. Following his victories, Captain Ibrahim Traoré's circle of trust was continuously tested. Though the battlefield was won, enemies had not disappeared. They had merely transformed into traitors within and sinister international forces. Reports surfaced that some of Traoré's closest officers were secretly communicating with foreign organizations. This posed a grave threat to the unity and discipline of the army. Traoré launched a deep internal investigation to root out the betrayal. Simultaneously, international pressure increased. Some nations found Traoré's political and military moves provocative, imposing economic embargoes and cutting off aid to Burkina Faso. Yet, with the support of his people and army, Traoré overcame these challenges. He initiated strong purges to remove traitors and reorganize the security apparatus. During this period, Traoré matured as a political leader as well as a military commander. He developed robust communication strategies and effectively utilized media to counter attacks against him. Despite the shadows of betrayal, Traoré's vision remained steadfast, preparing for greater goals. He continued fighting for Africa's independence and prosperity. Ibrahim Traoré was not only a soldier, but also a young and determined leader of Africa. His journey from humble streets of his hometown to becoming a figure who changed the fate of a continent was a testament to his ambition and vision. His childhood was full of hardships. His family struggled financially. Educational opportunities were limited. Still, Traoré always nurtured a desire for a better future. He excelled at school, worked diligently, and stood out during military training. As an officer, he rose through the ranks not only by mastering combat skills but by learning diplomacy, leadership, and public relations. His early exposure to difficult assignments honed his crisis management and strategic thinking. His success in counterterrorism was rooted not just in tactics, but in trust and strong bonds with his soldiers and the people. To him, soldiers were not just weapons but defenders of freedom. Traoré transformed battlefield experience into an opportunity for national development. By combining military discipline with public support, he accelerated political reforms and launched projects in education, health, and the economy. His greatest goal was ending Africa's dependence on foreign intervention. "We must write our destiny with our own hands," he declared, strengthening ties with other African nations. Ibrahim Traoré's determination and vision inspired many young people across the continent. His story became a symbol of overcoming adversity and taking control of one's future. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's victory was not just a product of bravery, but of deep strategic intelligence. For him, war was not just battlefield clashes, but a multi-layered process won through psychological warfare, diplomacy, and popular support. Identifying weaknesses and the power of intelligence, Traoré knew that the key to success was identifying the enemy's vulnerabilities. His smaller force couldn't confront the enemy head-on. Therefore, he worked closely with intelligence teams. Using drone footage, local informants, and satellite analysis, he mapped out terrorist camps, supply routes, and weak points. His efforts to win the trust of the local population were crucial. Traoré personally communicated with villagers, gaining their confidence and vital intelligence. This support allowed his strategic moves to be highly effective. Psychological warfare and misinformation. Traoré was a master of psychological warfare as well as physical combat. He leaked false intelligence to confuse the enemy commanders, sow distrust, and trigger panic. Manipulative messages and disinformation caused internal conflicts among terrorists, weakening their coordination. The impact of this psychological warfare was felt throughout the operation. Terrorists began to suspect each other and lost cohesion. Some even considered defecting to Traoré's side. Maximizing terrain advantage. Burkina Faso's eastern terrain was rugged and complex. Traoré used this to balance his smaller numbers. Forested areas, hills, and narrow valleys became ideal for ambushes and defense. Night operations and sudden raids kept the enemy guessing. Terrorists could not predict the point of attack, which shifted the battle in Traoré's favor, cutting off logistics and supply lines. Traoré aimed to weaken the enemy by targeting their logistics and supply routes, limiting their weapons, ammunition, and food supplies. He formed small, mobile, and well-equipped units that ambushed enemy convoys, significantly wearing down their capacity. Coordinated attack and pincer maneuver. The climax was the major assault on the water tower. Traoré split his forces into two main groups, one directly engaging the enemy's front lines, the other stealthily attacking their rear. This pincer movement shattered the enemy's defense and confused them. Though the battle was intense and bloody, Traoré's carefully planned tactics brought victory. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's success was not only due to his strategic genius, but also his deep compassion and connection with his soldiers and civilians. He treated his troops and people as family, listening to their concerns and standing by them in difficult times. Even in the toughest moments of battle, Traoré never neglected to boost morale. He stood alongside his weary and fearful soldiers, inspiring them with hope and courage. "This fight is for the freedom of us all," he would say, fostering a strong sense of unity. His close relationship with the people played a critical role in the success of operations. Villagers provided supplies and valuable information about terrorist movements. Traoré emphasized the importance of this solidarity at every opportunity. After the battles, he initiated social aid and infrastructure projects to heal the wounds of war. Health services were expanded, schools were opened, and access to clean water and electricity improved. Traoré won the hearts of the people not just as a leader but as a beacon of hope, showing that dark days were ending and a brighter future was possible. Captain Ibrahim Traoré went beyond traditional methods on the battlefield. He effectively integrated technology into the fight against terrorism. Drones, thermal cameras, and satellite intelligence greatly expanded his army's situational awareness. With this technology, enemy movements were tracked in real time. Terrorist hideouts were identified, allowing for surprise strikes that minimized his troops' losses. Traoré used technology not only militarily but also for logistics and communication. Coordination between units improved, and supply chains became more efficient. Local intelligence was combined with technological data, enhancing the accuracy of information and leading to remarkable successes. On the ground, this modern approach to warfare enabled Traoré to gain not only military superiority, but also informational dominance, a cornerstone of victory. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's victory came from not only courage but deep strategic intellect. For him, war was not just frontline clashes, but a complex process won through psychological warfare, diplomacy, and popular support, identifying weaknesses and the power of intelligence. Traoré knew that success depended on pinpointing the enemy's vulnerabilities. His smaller force couldn't confront the enemy head-on, so he worked closely with intelligence units, using drone footage, local informants, and satellite data. He mapped terrorist camps, supply lines, and weak points. Winning the trust of the local population was also vital. Traoré engaged directly with villagers, gaining their confidence and valuable intelligence. This allowed for precise strategic strikes, psychological warfare, and misinformation. Traoré was masterful in psychological operations. He leaked false information to confuse enemy commanders, causing distrust and panic. Manipulative messages fractured the terrorists' cohesion. This psychological pressure led to suspicion among the enemy ranks and disrupted their coordination. Some even considered switching sides, maximizing terrain advantage. The rugged terrain of eastern Burkina Faso worked to Traoré's advantage. Forests, hills, and narrow valleys provided ideal conditions for ambushes and defensive tactics. Night raids and sudden attacks kept terrorists off balance, unable to predict strikes, turning the tide in Traoré's favor. Cutting supply lines. Targeting the enemy's logistics was crucial. Traoré deployed mobile units to ambush supply convoys, reducing the enemy's fighting capability. Coordinated pincer attack. The decisive moment was the assault on the water tower. Dividing his forces, one group engaged the enemy head-on while the other struck from behind. This double encirclement broke enemy defenses and confused their forces. Though fierce, the battle ended in Traoré's victory. One of the key reasons for Captain Ibrahim Traoré's success was the deep bond he forged with his soldiers and his leadership. Philosophy. For him, Soldiers were not just fighters but defenders of freedom and justice. Being with his soldiers, Traoré never just gave orders from behind the lines. He walked alongside his troops, listened to their worries, and shared their burdens. This sincere approach increased the soldiers' trust and boosted morale even in the harshest conditions. In difficult moments, he gave inspiring speeches to uplift spirits, emphasizing unity. Together we are strong. These lands are ours and we are here to protect them. Justice and discipline. While strict about discipline, Traoré balanced firmness with fairness. He treated his troops equitably and quickly corrected any injustices, fostering a strong sense of belonging. He was resolute against betrayal within the ranks and conducted thorough investigations to root out traitors, maintaining order and unity, integration with the people. Traoré insisted on respectful treatment of civilians by his troops and encouraged winning the people's trust. He understood the war would be won only with the entire population's support. This approach increased civilian participation, providing vital intelligence and logistical aid to the army. Training and innovation. He valued continuous development, establishing training camps and educating his soldiers on new tactics and technologies. This ensured his forces remained strong both technically and morally. Behind the victories lay Captain Ibrahim Traoré's personal struggles, difficult decisions, and inner conflicts. Leadership was not only fighting external enemies, but also wrestling with oneself and the people around him. Sacrifices in family and personal life. Taking on leadership at a young age meant sacrificing time with family and loved ones. The pressures of war and politics often distanced him from those closest to him, sometimes straining relationships. Yet, he accepted these sacrifices for the future of his country and continent. A leader's greatest burden is the distance from loved ones, he often said. Inner conflicts and difficult decisions. Traoré sometimes doubted his choices, especially when operations resulted in casualties or civilian harm. But he knew difficult decisions were necessary for a better future. These inner conflicts revealed his humanity and deep sense of responsibility as a leader, balancing power and responsibility. Understanding the weight of power, Traoré used it justly and wisely. He carefully chose his close circle, remaining vigilant against those with ill intentions. Captain Ibrahim Traoré aimed not only to secure Burkina Faso, but also to spread his vision across Africa. To counter external interference, he worked on strengthening regional solidarity, security cooperation with neighboring countries. He formed security alliances with Mali, Niger, Ivory Coast, and other neighbors, coordinating cross-border operations and intelligence sharing. This cooperation curtailed terrorist movements and increased trust among regional governments. Leadership in the African Union. Traoré advocated for a stronger African Union stance on independence and resource control. His call for unity against neocolonialism gained wide support. He became one of Africa's new generation leaders, inspiring hope for the continent's future. Cultural and economic collaboration. Beyond security, Traoré promoted regional trade, infrastructure projects, and cultural exchange programs, strengthening Africa's internal cohesion and reducing external dependence. Amidst his victories and reforms, Captain Ibrahim Traoré faced one of his toughest tests: internal threats and betrayal. Hidden dangers within the army. Traoré discovered agents and collaborators of foreign powers within his own ranks, aiming to sabotage operations, leak information, and weaken his authority. This posed a serious threat to national stability. Intensive investigations and cleansing operations. He initiated secret investigations with security and intelligence units, tracking down traitors. Cleansing operations removed these elements, restoring order within the army. During this challenging time, Traoré received immense support from the public, who believed in his honesty and determination. This trust empowered his fight against internal enemies. In crisis, Traoré's leadership shone brightest. His calm, just, and firm approach quelled turmoil in both military and political spheres, allowing the country to recover and move forward. Traoré sought to extend his successes beyond Burkina Faso by strengthening regional solidarity against external interference. He forged alliances with Mali, Niger, Ivory Coast, and others, coordinating border security and intelligence sharing, significantly limiting terrorist activity. Traoré advocated for a powerful African Union united against neocolonialism, earning widespread support and becoming a symbol of Africa's new generation of leaders. He promoted regional trade and infrastructure development and encouraged cultural exchanges to build Africa's internal strength and independence. Behind the public successes, Traoré wrestled with personal sacrifices and tough decisions. His leadership role took time away from his family, sometimes straining relationships. Yet, he accepted these sacrifices for his country's future. The weight of command meant facing painful outcomes, including losses and collateral damage. Traoré grappled with these but remained committed to a better future. He remained vigilant, using his authority wisely and selecting trustworthy allies to avoid corruption and betrayal. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's journey was more than a military victory. It was a transformation that changed Africa's destiny, building a legacy. He became a hero inspiring Africa's youth. His reforms in education, health, economy, and security created lasting change. Future generations grew up with his story as a beacon of courage and hope. African unity and hope. His vision of continental unity and independence reduced Africa's foreign dependence. Africa rose as a confident, resourceful continent with a renewed voice on the global stage. From captain to leader, Traoré's path from a young captain to a continent-changing leader showed that courage, sacrifice, and determination could overcome any obstacle. Thus, Captain Ibrahim Traoré's story was not an end but the beginning of a new era.